Okay, hello, my name is Yuri. Today is the 11th of December 2022 and I don't usually make the reply videos to people doing martial arts, but this one is actually gonna be about Aikido, and particularly the guy called Rokas, who's doing his martial arts journey, who started as an Aikido instructor and then he got really disappointed and he was talking shit, and for a very long time, personally I myself and many other people were going like, look, stop talking about Aikido, right? You do not understand and you do not know Aikido. Your skills in Aikido are next to zero, right? His reply was, ha, I'm a second degree black belt, okay? And look, I think Rokas is a great YouTuber, unlike me. So yeah, if you like this one, I don't do many martial arts videos, but I do talk about other subjects, so do subscribe to my channels, and if you like politics, economics, history, whatever else, as well as martial arts, I'll talk about something or other that you might enjoy sooner or later. Right, but coming back to the Rokas, right? And he was getting a lot of hate from people who do the Aikido and from people who understood how Aikido works, as well as people who were just like, oh, I love Aikido, it can't be, it's magic, right? And it works on magic, right? And it works on rainbows, right? And unicorns, right? Yeah, those two. Right, so, but this is one, he makes a video where he's trying Aikido against Kudo, right, which is like, he tried it and he decided to go up and say, look, I'm gonna try it against somebody like this, and I mean, I give him kudos for that, but he still doesn't know Aikido, right, and sometimes you go like, look, I have to back up, right. And I haven't been rolling myself with people for a while, to be honest. Last time I rolled with people was just before the lockdowns, and I've been having the lockdowns really kind of put me in a hectic mood, so I'm hoping I will start rolling again soon. So a lot of things I'm gonna say in this video, I'm gonna look over the video, go through all the things Rokas does and says himself. I'm gonna point out like what is his problems are, right? So I'm not gonna be saying, hey Rokas, you just crap. Like, Rokas, you are crap. Sorry bro, but you are. But at least there should be something in there which says like, look, this is the parts, I'm gonna use those pens in the presentation. Don't get me wrong, right? But at least there should be somebody saying like, look, these are your issues, and can't be asked to write a whole book on Aikido in your comments, okay? So I do apologize, I've been a bit ill as well, but okay, we're gonna start from like watching bits of the video, or maybe missing bits of the video, and then going over them, right? So I'm gonna doing this in one setting. Like I said, I'm not a professional YouTuber, so I'm gonna have to be like jumping between sounds and things like this. If I do make mistakes, and hopefully I'm not gonna have to do the second take, okay? So let's start watching the video and then we're gonna go over the different things, okay?
I tried to apply Aikido against one of the most extreme martial arts out there, Kudo, which features full contact elbow strikes, knees, throws, and even headbutts. And then we tried to improve my Aikido techniques with the Kudo approach. That's because I've been training in Aikido for 15 years only to realize that I was never taught how to apply it in a fight. Imagine yourself investing a decade.
And look, this is one thing he's right about and wrong about at the same time. Now, most of the Aikido schools, they are aimed at running with a whole wide variety of people, right? So you have to have, let's say, an 8-year-old kid and an 80-year-old like grandpa in the same room, and they have to train. So a lot of Aikido schools do not actually teach you to fight per se. They teach you the techniques, and the expectation is that, well, if you really want to fight with those techniques, You're gonna take what we teach you, and then you're gonna go to the place where people do the fighting, and you're gonna put the walk of your own, right? You're not a little fucking child, okay? But it does come across that many people never do this, and actually, from what I've seen, is like, this is the reason that many Aikido schools are slowly turning into a complete fucking disaster. Is because people who actually start teaching Aikido are the people who have never went down that principle that, look, you know, this is a school which is supposed to kind of go for everyone, but if I really want to be a fighter and teach people how to use that stuff in a fight, I do have to go somewhere where I can actually use it as a fighter and practice it and understand it to the next level. And there's lots of issues like this, but this is one of them. There's many people who teach Aikido have never really used it outside of a dojo, right? Because, and again, one thing is, like, let's be honest, in my life, and I've lived like done quite a few things. I lived in rough areas, but in my life, let's say during my time in Europe, I don't think I've had many situations where they did actually turn into a fight. Okay, I'm a pretty big guy, so people wouldn't attack me every day, even in the bars. But most of the time in modern days, you do not really end up like being the guy getting into the fights unless you're looking to get into the fight. Okay, this is why the gyms are so kind of nice, you know. So it's nice to go and roll with people in the gyms against other martial arts, the MMA schools. You should really be doing this if you want to become an actual fighter. If you simply want to learn Aikido, like the techniques and things like this, there are still some issues in the schools. I went over one of them just recently, and there's a few more, but overall, like, the part where they're not actually teaching you the fight is the truth, right? They're teaching you Aikido, they're teaching you the techniques, they're teaching you the principles, and then if you want to be a fighter, they expect you to do your own footwork, okay? You expect you to say, okay, I want to be a fighter, I want to practice this in a more extreme manner than I can when I'm kind of in this room full of people who may be not as athletic as me, who is not as willing to fight as me, who come here to have fun. So that's not the way I'd expect to use those techniques, and I will go out and do my own work, right? Somebody who never did is Rokas' example, okay? So
Kid into learning a skill. For example, say swimming. You learn the motions, you practice them, you become better at them, but you learn to do it all on dry land. And then finally, you jump into the water only to realize that you can't swim. Now, you can imagine.
So yeah, great example. You can do all the training, but you know, if you only did it on dry land and never decided like, oh, I will never go into the water, right, then you'll never be able to swim. You can learn all the techniques you want. You need to go into the water, and it's up to you. Like when I was a little kid, growing up near the river, if I went to swim in the river, it was my choice, right? You know, I've learned to swim, you know, but if you were the kid that never went into the river, you never learned to swim. I think it's a fairly fair comment.
Imagine how I felt after I learned that I'm terrible at fighting once I tried sparring with an MMA fighter. Some people say that I just learned bad Aikido, that I had a bad teacher. Imagine how I felt after.
And look, guys, if you watch this video, like a lot of stuff he does in that video are probably one worth watching and actually going over with, but it's an old one, and in there he does so many basic mistakes that, like, you know, if he says he's a second dan black belt Aikido, like he does so many failings in that video. It's like yeah, you don't know Aikido. Whatever you're doing is not Aikido, even the basics. Okay, this is where many people went over and started having a go at Rokas, right? I was like, yeah, okay. I was at the time. I was like, look, if you're an inexperienced fighter, if you've never had the experience of getting into the ring, rolling with people, like I did that while I was young. I was training, going out on the streets, and I would end up sparring with people from other martial arts as part of our every morning routine. And we've done it for like about a year, like where I would do Aikido and then in the evening, and then before going to school I'd go out running around my block, and then we'll meet with some guys, and it's like, it's dark in the morning, like, like 5:30, 6 in the morning. Before going home, we would spend about half an hour to an hour actually sparring with each other, right? That was like the experience I had, and I've learned a lot from that. He was the guy who never went into the fight, and yeah, I've been in the fights before I went into those sparring sessions, okay? Quite a bit of, but we're not going to go. He was the person who never been in a fight, and you can see that, right? He was like moving like a crab, sideways. So, yeah. Okay, but I think people gave him an unfair treatment when they were saying, you're not doing Aikido right because in this particular session, because it was like, putting a 5-year-old against a grown-up and asking him to do boxing. It's like, shit doesn't work like this, okay? So,
learned that I'm terrible at fighting once I tried sparring with an MMA fighter. Some people say that I just learned bad Aikido, that I had a bad teacher, or that I was a bad student. But even if that were true, that didn't change the fact that I couldn't use Aikido in fighting. For a long time then, I had given up hope on Aikido entirely. I closed my school, and I didn't even think it was worth exploring if some of its techniques could work. Yet the more...
Personally, I did say, I was like, quite early on, I said to Rokas that he did not understand Aikido. And personally, I've said this. I remember saying this first time. It was not during that fight, but before he closed the school. It was one of the videos where he was trying to improve Aikido. He had the period, and there was a moment where he was trying to pull a technique against a cross. So in Aikido, it's called a tsuki, right? Strike. In karate, in judo, I think they call it the same thing. In Europe, like in all Western world, we call it a cross. So somebody crosses, right? And that time, and something which we will see through the rest of the video, always repeating. I've watched him trying to do this, and I was like, brother, your footwork does not exist. You must do the footwork. You must put yourself in a correct position, right? And we're gonna go over this as we watch this video. But I was like, look, your footwork, your basics are not there. It doesn't matter what you think, how you know the techniques in your mind, but if your basics are not there, you will never be able to do anything. You cannot improve anything if you do not understand the basics of motion, a basic of movement, a basics of how to get into a position where you can actually do the technique and are actually safe. So in Aikido, they call it tenkan, they call it irimi, right? So essentially, one of them is entering one way, the other one is the footwork to go around your opponent to do the other entries, right? Essentially, it's two types of footwork. So that you understood how important it is, there is a story. I haven't read that book myself. Somebody else kind of pointed it out on the internet. It was a book on Gracie wrestling, and the guy in there was they were saying, like, it was going over different things, and the summary was, it was multiple ways of getting to a position where you can choke somebody out from the back. So the whole book was not about clever techniques like, clever takedowns or clever submissions. It was pretty much one submission, but was how do you get there? So like imagine Gracie wrestling, which is mostly done on the ground, right? So like there is a whole book which is hundreds of pages on how do you move in the fight. Like, you know, take Aikido or something like boxing as well. I usually find those two share the things. The Aikido and boxing, they really share the way you move, do your footwork, right? If you take those and you add like different levels as well, so you got stand up, you kind of have your knees, sometimes somebody takes you down, what do you do then? So there is a whole lot of motions, right, which could probably cover like 3 books just for each kind of turn and things like this, right? And Rokas just simply doesn't have that.
The more I learned about fighting, the more I began seeing the possibilities of how maybe some of Aikido techniques could work. That led me on a journey to explore and ask various fighting experts to look for ways how Aikido techniques.
This is a very good example, right? You see how the guy is a karate guy, remember, but when he's doing a takedown, he's not really pushing or pulling someone, he's literally walking through somebody. So this is what I'm saying, the Rokas does not have those skills, right? And we will see that a lot. Like, it does not have an understanding how to use those skills. And unless you do that, you don't know Aikido, sorry. Right, and we've just gone through the first minute of the video, right? So I'm gonna, it's gonna end up being a long one. I didn't really think about that, okay.
Techniques could be improved, and to see if the 15 years I spent training it was maybe not useless after all. One of the last experiments I did on this journey was sparring using Aikido against karate. Yet there I realized a major flaw with my approach. Most Aikido techniques are done at a close range, usually where grabbing is involved. Meanwhile, karate is all about keeping your distance. As a result, I ended up chasing after my karate.
You see, this is like, now this is the first example of things like, okay, he went into like one and a half minute of the video and he's already saying, I ended up chasing the other guy. Right, the principles of Aikido is do not chase. If somebody is getting away from you, you do not chase them. If you start chasing somebody down, you're not doing Aikido. That's just the way it works, okay? So somebody come into, so let's imagine, right? This is an Aikidoka, this is a karate guy, right? Now, the karate guy wants to hit an Aikidoka, but the distance between them is 2 meters, right? Just for example. So karate guy wants to catch the Aikidoka, put a couple of strikes in and get away. Now the trick of the experienced person, this is a phrase quite often comes up, an experienced Aikidoka, right? Somebody who had been in a fight. He will be managing the distance and trying to work out when the karate guy is gonna do that quick step in to do the strikes. Because then, as he starts moving forward, as he accelerates, stopping in time becomes a bit hard. You have the weight, you have inertia, like, you know, you have only 2 legs and things like this. So, like stopping. So once he starts accelerating, the Aikidoka's reaction would be to change the angle and get to his side. So if they're standing here, right? The karate guy wants to get here so that he can hit an Aikidoka. The Aikidoka guy wants to get here, halfway between them, so that he ends up, you see, here, so that he ends up on the side or behind the karate guy. Why is that? Well, that is actually to be in a safe position, so it's a place where somebody much harder to hit you. So you kind of, this is kind of a game of cat and mouse. So you move around, right? So yeah, you can do strikes if you want to. Aikido perfectly allows that. But we are working from the principle of, I don't want to hurt you. All I want to do is really get out of this fucking situation. I don't want to fight you, but you insist on fighting. Right? So running away is like, yeah, if I can run away, great. If I see a danger somewhere coming my way, crossing the street and getting the fuck out of the danger seems like a good idea, right? But sometimes you don't have a choice. And now you have a guy who's trying to hurt you. He's trying to hit you. But if you start chasing him because you want to do a technique, you're not doing technique right in the first place. Okay? So as soon as you start chasing them, you're not doing Aikido. You're doing whatever else. There's some other martial arts which will have similar techniques, but you are not doing Aikido. As an Aikidoka, your aim is, if you are in a situation where you have to fight, your aim is to be like the mountain to the Muhammad. Right? For those of you who do not know, there's a phrase in, I think comes to us from Islam, from the stories about Prophet Muhammad, which is like, if the mountain does not come to Muhammad, Muhammad is going to go to the mountain. Well, essentially, your role is to try and be the mountain that the attacker comes to. It doesn't mean that you have just to stand there and wait. That's where the Tenkan comes in. This is where the Irimi comes in. Essentially, this is where your footwork comes in. Your ability to use the motion of the opponent to gain the better position. Right? Whether it's just simply safer, or whether it's a position from which you can do the technique. Okay? Right, this is less than 90 seconds, okay? And we already see this is why people say that Rokas does not understand Aikido. Right? This is the most basic one, and he fails at it.
Friend, never even receiving a chance to attempt an Aikido technique. Yet that made me ask the question, what if I was to spar with someone who used grabs in a fight themselves? Another major flaw in my approach was that I decided not to use strikes, thinking that in Aikido, you are never taught how to strike properly. But then I admit, it was stupid of me to think this. After all, in Aikido...
This is a point where you're not really taught how to strike in Aikido, right? But every time you train Aikido techniques, they do say, hey, here you do a strike. And many of the trainers, again, comes back to the schools being like, look, we're just a school, we're teaching you the Aikido, but if you want to practice it, you have to go somewhere where you practice it. And learning to strike, obviously, very important. My favorite strikes are the open palm strikes. People watch my videos. There's probably a dozen of people in the world who actually watched it. Maybe a bit more, the one where I talk about striking with an open palm, right? And my favorite ones are hitting with this side of the palm and essentially kind of, you see coming to the camera, something like this coming into your face, you're gonna flinch. Right, and the advantages it gives me is that, like many Aikido strikes, they are aimed at this, so it's like here, or there's a lot of Aikido strikes which are aimed to the throat like this. Right, they still kind of hurt and things like this, but I like doing an open palm strike because I can easily put in, like I can fuck up if I want to, and I can hit here, right, and I'm not gonna hurt my hand. Like I can hit a bit lower, something like this. It's gonna hurt, but it will make the kind of sparks go off. It will make people go, shit, what's just happened? Right, I can put in as much power as I want behind it, and it will still keep my hand intact. Right, I don't have to have the gloves. Boom, and then it just destructs. If I hit somebody on the nose again, it hurts, right? That's what they call a triangle of death, right? And if you trained in a good Aikido school, they would probably explain it to him, right? The guy who taught me, the first guy who taught me Aikido, second guy and the third guy I trained with, right, they all explained those things plus minus. But I also been to Aikido schools which have very little, which just explain very little about these areas. Why do you strike here? Why do you strike like that? You know, it's like, why is it this move is like this? You know, they just go, oh, it's just a variation of a strike. Okay, great. How do I do this? What does it do? How do I put it in the actual system? Right? He's right. Many places don't teach that well or do not concentrate on that. And again, these are the basics, and I expect that somebody who's reached like second, third dan in Aikido should really kind of go like, yeah, those are the basics I must know. If I don't know them, something went really fucking wrong. Right? Because I've never reached any dans in Aikido. To be honest, I've never bothered to grade. But I've done Aikido for over 7 years, just straight Aikido, and then other martial arts as well. So, right, so these are the basics, and these are the basics Rokas doesn't know. And look, we haven't even been through 2 minutes. I mean, the rest of the video is going to be just pointing out what he's doing wrong. And look, you know, we've got just... This is ridiculous, actually, I feel it.
You know, many techniques do start with a strike to bring away the attention of the attacker and then to perform the technique, leading me to ask my second question. If strikes were involved, maybe my Aikido would naturally become more functional. Now the question was, how do I find a practice where grabbing is involved and full contact striking plus grappling is allowed? And that's where Kudo came in. I tried Kudo for the first time a few weeks ago, and while it was intimidating to spar with someone who headbutts you regularly, I was deeply impressed by how capable Kudo was in adapting various techniques from different martial arts into its curriculum.
I'm gonna miss a bit of the video because he talks about Kudo, then he talks about the guy he spars with. He's like, he's been a champion in a few parts, and he's somebody who did a lot of fighting, so yes, I'll pay them credit. But I mean, you know, it's like this is like 4 minutes of talking about Kudo and then just running some ad for something because he's complaining he's not getting enough oxygen in the mask, so he has to take some addition, whatever. So I'm gonna try and go through this. So yep, this is an ad, blah blah blah. Okay, this is... Okay, so this is him talking about him sparring with the guy, and we shall see, like, you know, things he say. We're gonna go through the whole fight, you know, and then I'm gonna do my commentary on that, right? I'm not gonna stop at every half a minute. I hope you don't mind.
Experience was excellent. If you want to try out your Castron yourself, go to blackforestsupplements.com. His distance. Finally, I grabbed him again, but I found no opportunities to apply my Aikido techniques this time. I then started trying to push Toulouse into a corner so he couldn't back out anymore, and once I succeeded in doing that, I tried to do an Riminagi technique, where I would throw him by pushing his back and his upper chest and neck. Unfortunately, the technique didn't work, and for failing, I was punished with a strike to my head. Then, I got into a clinch again, and this time, I tried to secure a wrist for a wrist takedown, but got headbutted instead. No matter what I did, I wasn't able to pull off any Aikido techniques. Finally, the round ended, but that was by far not the end of his journey, as right after that...
So let's look at this. Like, he's trying to pull off an Riminagi technique, but a Riminagi technique is done by first unbalancing the person, and then throwing, right? He's not doing the unbalancing, right? The unbalancing done through your footwork by pulling the person one way or the other, or around yourself, whatever, right? If you're simply trying to do Riminagi, it's not going to work. Trust me, I tried it, and I failed miserably, okay? Right, I've tried it, rolling it with Gracie wrestlers, with judokas, going up against kickboxers, and unless you manage to unbalance the person by placing yourself in the right spot, so they come in at you, you move a bit, and then you pull them with you, so you make them go around you, and then you do the throw, right? It's not going to work. Again, we see him trying to chase the guy, Okay, not trying to pull him towards himself where he's defense. So if somebody is comes at you aggressively, this means that their attack defenses are lacking a bit, right? So again, Rokas is not doing any of that. He's not doing any of the basics. You cannot throw someone if they're in a very good position, right? As a matter of fact, like you see him doing it here, like, you know, he's trying to throw somebody to the Kotagayashi, but doing it like here, very close to the person, right? It's like, unless they're already off balance, it's very hard to do, even with the pain compliance, because they can just change a little. You change your position a little bit, and your Kotagayashi is not working, right? The basics of Kotagayashi is unbalance the person first. So like if somebody's holding me on this hand and they want to throw me with this hand first, pull me so that I lose a bit of balance, and then do the Kotagayashi, but do it in a position where the hand is not right next to my chest, but where my hand is extended. Right? This is, Rokas sometimes talks about extension, right? But he does not get the extension. The extension is not of your limbs. You're not the one extending your limbs and doing Kotagayashi here. You keep your hands close to you, and you're doing the throw by extending your partner's limbs. I'm going to use the word partner because whenever I roll with people, I don't see them as my opponents. I prefer to see them as my partners in training. So you extend your partner's hand and you create the position where they're off balance, their hand is extended, and as you're doing the throw, they have no way but to fall. No reason but to fall, because they are in such position that it creates a lever, right? There's a lever, there's a physics to that. Yes, there's energy, there's leverage, right? And you create by getting somebody like off balance. So like if here I'm in balance, right? But he pulled me or sideways somewhere and he extended my hand. So let's say I went to grab him, he pulled me, I'm extended. Now he's got the leverage to throw me, to lock my elbow and my shoulder, and then it becomes a much easier throw, right? A lot of people who do Kotagayashi, I've seen them do it, they try to rely on pain compliance here, which does not always work. You can get it, but it does not always work. And to be honest, the time it takes you to throw, the 5 minutes to throwing is like shit. You can do other things in that time. Okay.
I asked Vilus to improve my Aikido techniques so that then I could try to apply them during sparring with one of his students, who wouldn't know what's coming. After Vilus pointed out what he noticed didn't work,
Aikido doesn't work when the partner is moving.
True. You see this phrase, Aikido doesn't work when the partner is moving. No, Aikido works when the partner is moving towards you. So if we're Aikidokas, right? If you're an Aikidoka and I'm coming to you because I want to do the cross, right? Again, we talked about this, right? Karate, Aikido. Box, Aikido. The boxer wants to do a cross. He has to get in a certain range. For the cross to be effective, he has to be even in a closer range, right? And when you catch him at the moment of motion towards you, because if you simply stand there blindly like, oh, he's gonna hit me sooner or later, yeah, he's gonna hit you sooner or later. But you're moving, you're always moving. In the fight, if you stand in, like again, something Rokas does in this one, he's always head on. He's always head on with someone. If you ever did Aikido and actually practiced it while rolling with people, right? The last thing you want to do is be doing this, right? I've been in a sparring match with somebody who was like more boxing, right? So we didn't do any throws, and by simply changing my angles, but the boxing angles, they kind of go from here to about 90-degree angles. In Aikido, you can change the angles to 180 degrees, Okay, you can go all the way behind them. So it's like if you do something with a reasonably good judoka or with a reasonably good Gracie wrestler as well, quite often, like once they get into this actually becomes a very interesting game of like, hide, I don't know, catch me if you can, kind of, where as soon as they get to you, you just change an angle. You change an angle. You use that to change an angle. Get behind him. Get on their side. And this is what calls for the other person to react. And you kind of essentially, you changing an angle. You acting as if you're going to hit, but or whatever, or do a takedown, and they have to react. So this is what I'm saying. This is what it said in Aikido, that you're waiting for the person to act so that you can react, but you can force the person to act the way you want by moving yourself. But if the person is here and the last thing they want is to be hit by you, and they're moving in this direction, right? They're getting away from you, and you start chasing them. Now this is when you can't do Aikido techniques. No way. We already said this before. And Rokas is, every time he's kind of trying to do the same thing, and every time he fails, he tries to chase the person rather than getting the person to chase him. Basic Aikido principle, like basic things that you have to know, basic things you have to understand. Rokas has a problem with this. So Rokas, if you watch this video, you suck. Sorry, brother, but that's the fact of life, alright? Learn the basics. Don't care about techniques. Learn the basics. Relearn the basics. Do find out exercises how to practice your basics. Okay? Cool. Let's continue.
I showed him the main techniques I was trying to apply, starting off with kotegaeshi, a wrist takedown that my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach already helped me improve, and one that I managed to pull off sparring a judoka. But then, Dilis had a fascinating suggestion on how to improve this technique even further.
Yeah, I got the solution for this one. You're trying to pull back, try to get close to me.
I like that.
So this is a kind of a shibara in Japanese judo, when you cut in this,
sweep the leg.
and when you catch, you try to pull, catch, and go down.
The focus goes from
focus
here
goes
to we're fighting. Like kind of.
Yeah.
The next technique I showed was iriminage, the one I tried to apply during our sparring while pushing Dilis's back and then applying pressure on the upper chest and neck. But when I showed him this technique, he quickly noticed a flaw in my approach.
This
Yeah, you didn't unbalance him. That's the flaw in your approach. You need to unbalance the person further. I mean, they will talk on about a bit later where the guy's gonna, where his Rokas' partner is gonna do more of a judo throw, where he does throw, but that part also exists in the iriminage. Yes, it does, but it's just that in judo you do unbalancing slightly differently. So you need to get the person off balance first. The angles at which you do the throw, they change depending on the person. So like, sometimes you do one, sometimes you do another. But right now the Rokas does, we're not even talking about the part where the Rokas does a iriminage by simply going across. Right, and just trying to do, he's trying to do like this motion, right? So he's trying to do a jigsaw motion, this. Where if you do a iriminage, you might do this, but here you do this. So you got this point where you're hitting somebody on the back, but you're doing up and down. And to do up and down, you need first to pull them down a bit first, get them a bit of balance, get them into motion, and then you go up and down. Okay? Right, unless you unbalance the person. Right, and again, and balancing is like some of the core things in Aikido. People do it as part of the training of the techniques, but very, very, very few schools, and I've been through a couple, right, will actually kind of concentrate on doing just the unbalancing. They will very seldom have the exercises like the the drills where you literally just do the unbalancing and nothing else. It's like you got him unbalanced, you let him go. That's it. You're done. You get out. Right? Most of the time it kind of happens when you do randori in Aikido, but again, most of the schools never do it. Okay? So again, it's like something very basic, and this is something which is somebody who's gone past the dan, past the, say, Rokas says he's got the second dan. This is something he should really know and understand, right? And yeah, he has a problem with this just here. Okay, so when people say that he doesn't know and understand Aikido, that's why. It's not because they simply hate Rokas, it's because they see those things and they go like, oh my god, okay? But, Rokas is not an exception, okay? What Rokas does here is indicative of many Aikido schools and many people who do Aikido, because number one, they don't expect to really ever be in a fight. Number two, they come in there as a friendly club, and quite often you see people, and I think I mentioned this before in one of my videos, where essentially people fall before you do a technique for you. And this is a big problem in many Aikido clubs, and this is why people like Rokas do not get it. Right? The other person falls because he has to practice his fall-in skills, his breakfall skills, but also because they saw the person helping the trainer fall. Right? Whereas like very seldom, but sometimes you get a person who's like, oh wait, he's not just falling for me. Great, let's go. Let's just do it again and again and again. But it's very rare something to find. And yeah, but it's a lot of fun if you find a person who does not simply fall for you, because you get to practice those skills a lot more. So, but a good partner in training would not simply fall for you. And many Aikidokas, because they see this as we have to be very helping to each other, they will fall, and they're not actually helping people to learn Aikido, they're actually hurting people's ability to learn the techniques properly, because if somebody falls before you do something, yes, you don't learn it properly, and then things like this happen, and you end up making yourself look like an idiot. Okay.
Technique looks like similar like judo or sotogari. Your disarm need to go, pull the weight on the one leg.
In Aikido, the direction was here. Your back is very strong, but the way you did it towards the weak, towards kind of the weak spot where I can't.
Yeah, but you need to punch.
Right, the weak spot. The principle of triangle, it exists in Aikido. And again, if Rokas have studied Aikido and he says he's a second dan and he understood Aikido, one of the basic principles that you learn in Aikido, essentially what it says is that, imagine these are your legs, imagine they're this wide set up. This means that there's a weak spot somewhere here. If you pull the person towards this weak spot, they will fall over, okay? Or at least it will be much easier for them to fall over. It's a principle of triangle that it's been known in Aikido through I don't know how long, like, but I know the first person that taught me Aikido taught me about this principle. This principle has been taught to me by people who did Sambo as well. Before I did Aikido, somebody had practiced with, and many martial arts will have the same principle. Right, the fact that Rokas does not really kind of use that principle, again, kind of, it seems like, oh my god, you're pulling me to my weak spot, I didn't know I could do this, right? You see how he becomes a bit of a laughingstock about people who practice Aikido and who go to the gyms and come into the gyms and say, sorry guys, but I'm an Aikidoka and I know you guys have an open rolling session for Gracie Wrestling, but I will go in and roll as an Aikidoka and I'm gonna do my Aikido. And if you people are happy for me to do this, it's great. You know, if not, I will go away. But most of the time, people are happy for you to do this. It's a good fun. You can, like, you know, meet some interesting people, you have some very interesting conversations doing this. Okay, so again, yeah, okay, sorry brother, but yeah, you should have known that. Okay, let's go.
Like with this, stronger with your biceps. Better idea is to grab the gears. So this now can work.
The third technique that showed the most promise in how Vilius improved it was a variation of kaitanage, a technique where the neck is pushed down and the arm is used to throw from above.
This Aikido version of you, there's no pressure at all.
Right.
When we're fighting, I always try to catch the gi. Grab this and go on this side. Blocking like, grabbing like Himura, and then you can change, yeah.
Okay.
Now.
Right.
Like if you do like this, I got some pain in my shoulder, Step back with this leg and push me down to the side.
Right.
I always go like this.
The other techniques I presented.
And you see, if you watch the moments, like the way the guy in the blue suit does it, he actually does more of an Aikido version of this Aikido throw than the Rokas' student does here somewhere. You see here he has his hands hyperextended here. You don't really see that, like, but what he does here right in this moment. I'm gonna switch off the sound and just roll with it. So yeah, as he pushes someone through, he steps through. He's not literally trying to push. And this is what I'm saying is there's a lot of that is missing from, like, yes, his hands are like too hyperextended, so you cannot control a person like this. I mean, I've been doing Aikido and every single time I was told is like, you extend the hand, you put their head down, and then you just literally walk into them, right? Because you have 3 points of control at least. You expect it to have, which is one hand, second hand, and then you have your hip as a control point number 3. If you have only 2 control points, the person is most of the time going to get out of your technique, right? So the more points of control you have, so it's like if you can hold your hand, put it on your shoulder, across your chest, and then, put your hand back of the head and then put your hip into them, you've got your, I don't have anything long enough, but essentially you have their hand like coming across your shoulder like this, yeah, and you got even more points of control. That's even better, right? So you see this very big misunderstanding of Rokas by you need to extend the hand extension so that it's making them extend their hands rather than you extending yours, right? So again, but the guy here, right, you see him doing this, the way he gets it, and let's get back another one. So he goes through here, and you see the points of, you can just about see as he changes, you see the point of his controls. He's got this controlling his hand, this controlling his hand, and then he puts the hand on the hand, and he gets a lot of control from that, and then he starts pulling the person, getting them off balance. In that moment, he tells him to pull him as well, so he's like getting him off balance using your footwork, right? You don't do this by just you're moving your foot away. So you said move your left foot out of the way and pull him with you. Yes, that's the point. This is what I'm saying, this is what I said at the beginning of the video. You have a lot of stuff you do with your footwork rather than with your hands, okay? So shall we play a bit further?
Go under and twist the arm here.
It's very hard to go for this side because it's very risky to go on the guillotine choke.
Right. If I loosen up the wrist,
yes,
and I manage to make an angle here, then there's a lock here.
But it's very hard to twist the
That's
arm
the thing.
like this.
Right.
Yet still, now I had 3 new
So yeah, we can see that, like, look, a lot of stuff he does with his hands, but he does not doesn't move his body, he doesn't move his feet. If I manage to get an angle, well, that's the entire part of what you're supposed to do. You must get an angle. If you're not getting an angle, you're not doing the Aikido right. If you're not fighting for that angle before you start trying to twist somebody's hand, you kind of fail. You will fail 99.9% of the times because you're not in the right spot. Because by the time you finish twisting his hand, he already punched you he's already knocked you out with his free hand, right? So you have to be in a position where he can't strike you, right? This is what we're talking about, angles. This is where we're talking. If two people are here, right, the Aikidokas, if this guy is coming, you're trying to get either this angle or 90-degree angle, right? So this angle, 90-degree angle, 135-degree angle, or 180 degrees angle. Now, if you want, you can go from here all the way around to here. That's okay, right? So you went all the way around because somehow he reacted, he started to turn, and you just rolled with it, and you ended up on the other side because this is the part where he was trying to hit you with an elbow, right? So if I'm striking and you went past me and I'm coming back with a big elbow, and you continue moving around me and end up on this shoulder, all the best to you. Right, but it's not magic, it's footwork. You move with your feet. Something Rokas doesn't really do. Okay? So.
Approaches to my Aikido techniques that I was about to try out in sparring, first of all with Vilius again, then with his student, and finally a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. Yet again, to see that maybe what I learned in Aikido wasn't so useless after all, but instead I wasn't taught the right approach. Sparring with Vilius this time, for the first few moments I struggled. But then suddenly I saw an opportunity to try to apply what he just taught me. And it worked! Not only that, but while doing the newly learned variation of Kaitenage, midway, I switched it up to using another Aikido joint lock technique called Ikkyo, which I used to take Vilius down almost all the way to the ground. Eventually he rolled out of it, but still, this was the first time I ever applied these two Aikido techniques in sparring. Next up, it was time.
So, we see this in this video, right? He's still going head on. He's still chasing the person, his partner, right? If you're chasing, it's very hard to do the techniques. The moment he gets to do the technique is when the other partner was attacking him, right? He's coming towards him. And now he's like ended up on this kind of, oh shit, I must get out. Oh my God, I see the opportunity, right? The opportunity ended up being when Rokas was at about like this angle. Right, this is where the opportunity comes in. Remember what I was showing you earlier, right? If somebody comes towards you, you're trying to change an angle, change an angle, change an angle, right? And this is where, because you go like, this is where the opportunities comes from. Right, as soon as you go into this angle, right, so now he's managing to take down, like this technique doesn't work, and now again, something he's gonna have him continue doing this mistake, but in this one technique doesn't work, and this is a mistake I have made myself multitude of times. Like, I'm talking like hundreds of times, and I'm still probably gonna end up doing it a few times more. But you get too concentrated on one technique. I'm gonna pull this technique off. And usually you don't make this mistake when you end up being in the moment like this. So in the moment like this, he was like, look, this technique, but it's not running. But because he didn't have time to think, he switched to another technique. It didn't work as well, fine, but he managed to bring his partner down, right? But many people, they get concentrated. They see this technique because they like really looking for it, right? And it doesn't work, but they continue to trying to finish the technique, do whatever it takes, where you can actually switch the technique because the person's off balance and you can use some other technique, but because you get so caught up in this particular thing. And I have done it multitude of times, like I said, there's where I would be like, I want to pull him down like this, and it's like, and then I'd be looking over well, not the fight, but sometimes the fights actually, and I'd be looking, and I'd be like knocking my head on the wall, like boom, boom. Why was I such an idiot? There was this technique open for me. There was this technique open for me, right? All I had to do was just change an angle by 15 degrees, and that person would have fallen down themselves. I wouldn't even need to do anything, because they were so inept, so concentrating on fighting me, from stopping me to do what I was going to do, that the amount of energy, the amount of feedback they were giving me was like, well, if I simply let them, if I simply stepped out of their way, they would end up flying in the direction they were trying to push me. And this comes, like, again, with experience. This comes with rolling. But in here we see he was trying to, so long as he was trying to chase the person, right, he couldn't do nothing. As a matter of fact, he got taken down. But the only opportunity that appeared for him was the opportunity in which he was actually doing the evasion. Right, this is what I'm saying from the very beginning. Rokas does not understand those basics. He does not use those basics, and until he spends really time concentrating on those basics, he will never be able to really pull Aikido techniques unless it's a fluke. Okay, and those are very hard to practice, but there are ways, means and ways. So Rokas, feel free to give me a shout. I can go you through some of the things I generally did when I was rolling with people, and a couple of exercises I've been taught while I was actually doing Aikido. If you want to do the basics, shit, I'll be happy to give you some advice. Thank you. But we're gonna continue.
To spar with Arnas, one of Vilus's students, who intentionally didn't watch what Vilus taught me so he wouldn't know what's coming and I had more opportunities to apply what I learned. Yet things were still not easy. By the way, when I'll hit 300,000 subscribers, I will spar with the MMA fighter again that I first tested my Aikido with, and I'll try to apply with him what I learned over the last 5 years. If you want to see that happening, subscribe. During my sparring with Arnas, he was very conscious about keeping his distance, knowing that I need to close it in order to perform Aikido techniques, making the process much more difficult. I struggled to get into a clinch for a while, but then I decided to start pushing him into a corner so he couldn't create distance anymore. That helped me finally get into a clinch, secure the wrist, and perform an Aikido wrist takedown.
And again, what we see here, he's chasing. He's not bringing the guy to him. He's not really, like, putting him in a position where he himself, Rokas himself, is in a safe position where he can play for techniques. Like where he's doing the takedown, right, the wrist takedown, he's also leaving himself open to multitude of attacks, right? I'm gonna switch off the sound here. You see, he's open, right? And the other guy tries to punch him. Like, if the other guy did not bother, went, instead of trying to rip his hands off, went with it a bit. So, as he's trying to throw him here, just give him a hand, come through, and just put a very big strike. Start striking Rokas in the... That would not be a liver side, is it? That would be his left side. So kidneys open. If somebody's armed, for example, they have a knife, or even, let's be honest, a pen, Right, I mean, we remember John Wick 3 killed 3 people in the bar fight with a pencil. Right, but to be honest, this is a can be very dangerous in somebody who's desperate enough to just jam it into your side. Not only does it hurt, but this motherfucker breaks, and then you have bits of plastic inside you, which are very hard to get out. Sometimes I don't know which one is supposed to be hit with, this or a blade. Right, but if somebody's really got that, they can just jam it into you like really hard, and you're in trouble. Right, he's open, he's completely side open, his face is completely open because he's super concentrated. And this is something I mentioned already, right, just before that. He's super concentrated and doing this strike. Right, from one point of view, yes, many people in Aikido, they say, yeah, but when this hurts, like, you know, people tend to concentrate on that. Yeah, they try to get out of this. And to be honest, simply just, no, you don't even need a pen, for crying out loud. Just put your hand like this and shove someone on the eardrum, and they're not concentrating on your arm anymore, because now they have like ears ringing, like, you know, tears coming out of their eyes. Right, so there's a lot of things that can happen in the fight. Simply a big swing, like wild swing, just coming down on your neck, your jaw, your ears, like, you know, will get you out. You're not wearing a mask in a real fight. You know, you're not wearing a mask when you're in self-defense situation. So this is why, like this, I'm saying, like, he's so concentrated on this technique because, oh my God, I managed to get there, right? He did not do the basics right. He just got there because he chased the guy. If the guy is running away, you do not chase, okay? You let the person get away. You let the partner get away. You let them break distance. Because if they want to get you, they can't do it from 2 meters. They have to come back. And it gives you opportunities to put yourself in a better position. To give yourself time to be more prepared. Right? To give yourself opportunities to maybe strike them from long distance. Right, these are all things we're talking from martial art from the point of view of like self-defense, even in competition. If you're in the cage and the person's running away from you, chasing them might not always be a good idea. So you have to kind of play this game of cat and mouse. Yes, he does a good job by kind of pushing the person in the corner afterwards. Before that, this throw by simply doing a good boxing positioning. And simply going right at him and throwing punches and just like moving a little bit to the left and to changing punches up a bit just to make the person move backwards. But again, slightly more experienced fighter would use that to slip to the outside and make a throw. Right? Aikido principle 101. Somebody was doing this to me, and I had this done to me by people who thought they were much better boxers than me, right? And they were better. Okay, fine. They didn't think they were better boxers than me. They were better boxers than me. If I stood there and fought them on a basic, like, you know, basic boxing, they were much better punchers. Like they were more precise with their punching. By simply catching, knowing that yeah, this is a strike coming. By simply changing that angle from being head on to being here, I would end up putting them in a position where I had full control over their hands and I had the opportunity to just keep on striking. I would just slip, put my hand across them, stop them from turning, have their arms, so their striking arm. Usually I do this against the jab, right, or left, because then I could put my left hand across theirs here, stop them from turning, and I'd be in a position where my hand would essentially be stopping this hand, controlling this full shoulder, and I would have the opportunity to just keep on pummeling them, like, you know, with a fist or with an open hand. It didn't matter, because we were not really trying to hurt each other, but I was in a position to just continue, and they had trouble to do this, right? Rokas doesn't do this, right? But again, this comes with experience of basics. Rokas doesn't have them. He does not know Aikido. He does not understand that. He does not understand the tactics and strategies and how they are achieved. So doing a takedown by a wrist is done in any martial art I trained with. Like, we're talking wushu, we're talking, like, except boxing, but I've never really trained boxing or kickboxing, which are the sports, right? But any actual martial art, so, like, I did train a bit with the sambo guys, I trained a bit with the judo guys, so when they would teach you, they would have something or other which would involve throwing with the wrist. Filipino martial arts as well, there's tons of techniques in there. HEMA, again, there's lots of techniques of throwing someone with a wrist. So the way it's not throwing someone with the wrist, is how you get to that throw which matters. Different martial arts do it differently. In HEMA it's done usually when you're fighting with a dagger, right? Not so much when you fight with the hands. But in Aikido, obviously, it's been changed to be done with your bare hands against somebody striking you, okay? So, let's continue.
Perform an Aikido wrist takedown in my next sparring with a 10th planet Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. While being taller and having more experience in striking, I had the upper hand during our striking exchanges. Yet every time we went into a clinch, I felt like hitting a wall due to my partner's extensive experience in grappling. Finally though, I did manage to secure a wrist, but I couldn't perform the takedown and the situation started to feel hopeless. That is until I remembered what Vilus taught me.
And when you catch, you try to pull, catch and go down.
I began attacking the leg, and that brought away the attention enough to perform a successful takedown.
Like the first time you did it, kind of slipped out, then I got back the position and you did it again and you started kicking my leg. So that kind of...
Hey, that's work.
I knew you were kicking my leg and I was like, he's trying to take this one, forget about this. But still somehow my brain, after every single kick, it's like it just kept becoming softer.
There was a period in my life when I...
So, let's go over this one again. Right, if we see here, like, he ends up catching the wrist while he himself is moving backwards. You see, the guy's leg ended up kind of pushing a bit forwards and he catches the wrist on the move backwards a bit to the angle. This is what we're saying. You need to move away so that somebody gives you that energy, right? He's trying to take you down because he knows if he stays in that range where the Rokas had the punching, right? So the Gracie wrestler is trying to take him down. He's going all out, he's trying to stay close, and a little step backwards means that he's overextended his hand and provided him with something to grip on. But then what happens is again, Rokas concentrates only on one technique, like only one throw, right? He's really fighting here to do the throw, and he remembers that, yeah, if you kick someone, right, see? But we're gonna go back a few seconds, because what you will also see, right, as he kicks, yeah, and as soon as Rokas allows the person to have a little bit of leeway to get back up, you see him really down, and then as soon as Rokas lets go, the person goes, oh shit, I'm getting back, I can get back up. Right, again, this is one of the principles of Aikido. They say, look, if you put somebody down in the pressure, but they not, and I mentioned this before myself in this very video, where I was like, hey, there was positions where I'd concentrate on one technique, and yeah, you will pull it in the end, but the amount of energy the other person gives him just to trying to get up, right, in here he could do the Irimi Nage. He could literally just pull him a bit down and let him come back up and come in for a Irimi Nage or a hip throw, one of those would work perfectly fine, create a much faster, much better takedown, much cleaner takedown, right, by simply giving the person that space to, oh my god, I'm free, I'm getting up, because all his muscles are aimed. This is what they teach you, like you have to learn to feel the energy of the person, where they want to go, like, and then go with it and redirect that energy to your benefit. So if somebody is really keen on getting up, let them get up. Why? Because their whole muscles go up, right? And then if you use that energy to pull them as they're going up, to just pull in the direction where you want them to go, right, it becomes much easier to take them down, right? But again, I've been in these situations myself multitude of times. Unfortunately, I wasn't rolling lately at all last few years, let's be honest, because of the lockdowns, and recently it's been a bit harder to get back into training because I screwed up in my life a bit. But these are the basic principles, like, yeah, use the energy. He's giving you that lots of energy trying to get up. Adjust to that energy. Move to the position where you can take the energy, right? Or where you can make the person to do that upward motion and do a throw. A hip throw or a variation of a Riminage would work absolutely fine here, right? No need to concentrate on the single technique, but because Rokas is so used to trying to be this, forcing this one or forcing that one, he's not really doing the Aikido. He does the technique, maybe kind of badly, yes, but you cannot just adjust the techniques or improve the techniques if you don't understand the very basic driving principles behind the techniques. Okay? And this is pretty much kind of covering most of the stuff he's done and oh, sorry. He's done and said here, but I'm making this video because whenever you write to Rokas, oh yeah, you know, you're just hating on me because you're just a hateful person. It's like, no, this is the things that you do wrong, the Rokas does wrong in his Aikido practice. These are the things that he does not understand. He does not use them. Just because you understand how you have learned by heart the kind of motions you need to do this techniques or these techniques, but you've never actually went out and practiced it with the person that is trying to take you down. If you've never went on and if you haven't done at least, like, I don't know, a few hundred rolls with people in all sorts of different conditions, so we're talking both ground rolling on the ground with people who do Gracie wrestling, doing a stand-up with people who do judo, and then, I don't know, having a few strikes thrown with people who do boxing, kickboxing, or even MMA, where you say, like, look, I'm gonna concentrate on my basics, I'm gonna do my Aikido, and I know I'm gonna fail until I succeed, right? Same things happen if you do any other martial art. You have to practice. You have to go out and do the practical parts of things. You have to understand lots of basics before something clicks for you and you go, like, you go into, even if you do, let's say, Gracie wrestling, everybody's favorite, right? You go to the gym and you roll and roll and roll and you fail, and then something clicks and you go, oh shit, how could I not see that before, right? And the Rokas is not the person who have done the necessary things to understand and use Aikido. He's not the person who has done the necessary study, and he's not the person who has actually went on and did necessary analysis of the things he does. And to be honest, I would say this is his fault, right? Rokas, if you're watching this, brother, this is your fault. This is your attitude. And this comes from a very long video. He was saying that. He was doing a video where he was complaining about Aikido. And this was probably the first time I said him to shut the fuck up. He was complaining that, look, if you end up in a fight and you come to your coach and you say, this technique didn't work. And the first thing the coach asks you, the teacher asks you, is like, okay, can you take me through what have you done? What was the situation? What have you done? How have you reacted? And in Rokas' words, it's as if they put the blame on you. Well, brother, the blame is on you. Okay? You did not do the homework. Unlike many professional fighters who go in the fight and fail and they say, okay, now I'm going to go and I'm going to do my homework and I'm going to see what have I done wrong and what could I improve to become a better person. Well, you were complaining how you're a perfect person. Well, you're not. And this video shows that. And your entire 5 years, or more than 5 years, I think now, 5 years of doing other marts should finally get you to the point where you should admit that, hey, I'm not a perfect person. There is a lot of shit I don't seem to understand. And maybe I should go back to basics and learn and understand that before I start doing and telling people how Aikido is good or bad, or before I start trying to improve it. Because I have seen people who Rokas been asking to help him improve the Aikido techniques, and those people who have never done Aikido did better Aikido than Rokas does. Right? Each technique has its place, each technique has its time. Specifically, for example, when they talk here, right, they talk about Sankhya. Was the Sankhya, this one. Surprisingly for me, and I didn't want to touch on this, but this is the end of the video, so surprisingly for me, Sankhya was a good technique to get out from people trying to put me into a choke like this. Especially move through, so catch their hand and move through under them. So essentially this, grab them by the butt, or just move my hand forward and just use my elbow to force myself through and then go into a Sankhya. Right? Somebody tries to guillotine me, Sankhya is the great technique to get out of it if you do it right. If you do your footwork right, if you do your positioning right, if you do many other things right. Okay? If you get your basics right, yeah. So, alright, and this is what I wanted to say. Again, I think Rokas is great when it comes to being a YouTuber. I always would wish him all the best in his attempts to learn more and train more in martial arts. This is something personally, as a human being, I'll always support him in. But sooner or later, somebody had to say that, brother, you got no idea what the fuck you're talking about when it comes to Aikido. And somebody had to stood in a way where it's more of a kind of saying what you're doing wrong and how you're doing wrong and how you can improve yourself, rather than saying that you just shit at it. Okay, because to do it, I don't know how many minutes I've recorded already, but obviously, you know, there's a lot of stuff which is gone through, but if I were to sit down and write it, that would require me to write a lot. And most of the people are just not gonna do this. So I thought I'd do this video. I hope that helps. If you're doing Aikido and you're not Rokas, these are still things to look out for, because many Aikidokas don't do that. especially when they get into the situation where there's a confrontation, whether it's in the gym or something like this. They go straight to, they close their eyes, they try to grab onto the hand and try to do koregayashi. And they usually get like, I'm gonna get it! No, you won't, okay? Work on your basics, try to understand how they walk, try to practice them. Practice them with other people, practice them with people from other martial arts, so the same irimi, the same tenkan can be practiced perfectly well in a light sparring against boxers, against kickboxers, against Thai boxers. Hell, they can be practiced against judokas, they can be practiced against Gracie wrestlers, catch wrestlers, Wing Chun people, anybody. You can practice this and you can do this and you can improve by going against many other people. Right? As a matter of fact, if you have never done Aikido and you're looking for something to do from Aikido to improve your style or whatever, to improve yourself, learn those basics, right? Literally pay attention, learn about tenkan, learn about irimi, learn about how the footwork works in general, learn about the posture, why it's done like this and not like that. There's a lot of interesting things to learn, but learning to do the footwork is gonna improve any martial art you do by a mile, probably a million miles, to be honest. Right, so thank you for watching. I hope I've been entertaining enough. Like I said, this has been taken in one take. I probably have to tap a bit along the way. I hope I didn't. I'm gonna watch it. If it's not too bad, I'm gonna post it. If it's too bad, I'm gonna post it anyway. Okay, guys? Like I said, I'm not a professional YouTuber, but thank you for your attention. I hope that helps. Bye.